All right, what is good, everybody? Quan Credible here with the review for Four Knights Chapter 68. Now, at the recording of this video, I still only have the fan translations. I'm sure that the officials are going to come out like relatively soon, but I didn't want to wait any longer. So here is the review for chapter 68. Now, this chapter was basically this chapter was basically a Tristan hype chapter. Like, there was like other stuff that happened, and there was some bits of information that are really important to take away here, but basically it was a Tristan hype chapter. And one thing this chapter made me remember is it was in a interview with Nakaba. I don't remember exactly where it was or when it was said, but basically someone had asked Nakaba why Tristan or Lancelot was not the main character of Four Knights of Apocalypse and why it was Percival. And basically he said because Tristan and Lancelot were way too strong in this chapter. Like, we didn't get to see Lancelot fight, but we got to see a lot of Tristan, and Tristan, as he said, way too strong to be the main character in my opinion. Now, you could say that's not a bad thing, being like having a overpowered main character, but it's just that like Tristan, and I'm assuming Lancelot as well, are so far along in the journey with their powers and how to use their abilities that they are just like so much stronger than the Seven Deadly Sins were for most of the series. Granted, we didn't get to see him struggle at all, so we don't really have an idea of how much stronger, but I'll go more into that as the video goes on. So basically this chapter was just, Tristan fighting against Melascula, and as we know, remember to keep this in mind, she is a bit stronger than what she was before because she is enhanced by chaos power, so she would be a little bit stronger than she would be before. Granted, she doesn't have access to her commandment, so you do have to take that into consideration, but I'd argue being chaos enhanced would probably be more of a buff, to be honest with you. So one of the main cool things that I think Melascula does do in this chapter is she is able to, I guess, eat some of Tristan's magic and make this like chaos demon goddess hybrid creature that's like resistant to dark and holy magic, which I thought was a really cool thing, because even when Tristan tries to use his light magic on it, it has absolutely no effect. I think it's like a really like random cool thing that she does do. I highly doubt she was probably able to do this beforehand, while she was normal, just because I doubt like in her regular demon form she'd be able to even mess with light energy to any effect. But one of the big things here in this chapter is how she says he reminds her of his mother, Elizabeth. While at the end she does say, that said, it seems that the strength of your magic doesn't even hold a candle to your mother, which makes Tristan extremely excited. We can see here that Tristan is really pumped up about how strong his mom is. He's very proud of his goddess side from what we kind of get from this, and that he even goes further on where because he said this before, where like he can heal wounds but he can't cure curses and ailments. I believe he said something similar to that when that one guy, oh, what was his name, Cheon, when Cheon's arm got absorbed by Percival, or when the life force got sucked out of it, he made a note to her how he couldn't be able to do anything, but his mom temporarily could be able to. And it's funny because he also brings up where he got his like earring from, and he just starts to kind of prattle on and on and on, and he even kind of asks her like what was she like during the whole Bloodstained Ellie thing, because she doesn't like to talk about it, which is obvious. Elizabeth would definitely not want to talk about her past. Her and Meliodas are rather the same in that aspect as far as I'm concerned. They don't really like to bring up a bit of the darker moments of their past, be it they're embarrassed or they're ashamed or whatever. But this basically makes Melascula extremely angry because he's not really taking anything seriously to her. To which Tristan says he is taking things very seriously, which prompts her to say that he doesn't resemble his father at all, which to me I kind of disagree with, because Meliodas typically doesn't take a lot of battles too seriously unless it's a serious battle. Like, when you think about it, in any battle where Meliodas is in control of it, granted he doesn't ramble and talk a lot all like that, but he typically kind of, I'm not gonna say he full on goose off, but he doesn't take things very seriously. So I kind of disagree with her in this exact aspect, unless for Melascula, the Meliodas she is remembering is when he was part of the Ten Commandments. If she's thinking of the very serious, cold and dark Meliodas, then I would agree with her then. But I'm not really for sure which one she's talking about, or which version of Meliodas she's talking about in this exact moment. And then from here, we get one of the big questions that I've had for a long time answered. Lancelot poses as a fairy, well, I mean, he is a fairy, but Lancelot poses as a random fairy and asks Melascula about the other person that was with her. and this prompts her to think about the guy in the star visor and how he went off towards the castle and wondering if he messed up. And this basically answers the question of who the second person is, and that would be the star visor guy. Now, this guy is important because this was the person that Lancelot was asking Fittich about way back at the Entangled Forest. So this person is more than likely the person that was with Melaska, saying that is who she was. That is who she was thinking about. And now I keep saying he, but there is that very strong possibility that the star-shaped visor guy, it's been a popular fan theory that the star-shaped visor person could be Jericho. Maybe something along the lines that happened with Lancelot and Jericho when they went through that portal. You know, events could have happened and Jericho could have ended up in the service of Arthur. I think that's a very, very possible thing to look out for. But until we get to see more about this Star Visor Knight, we will not know for certain. I think it's kind of funny because after Lancelot like transforms back into himself, he keeps calling her a demon and tries to remind her of what she is or who she was, which, like, you know, this whole mind control thing that Arthur has on Galland and Melaskla really is like, it's a messed up like mind control spell that he really has put them under, because it's like they remember certain things. It's like Melaskla can remember Bloodstained Ellie, but for some reason she doesn't remember she's a demon or that she's one of the Ten Commandments, which should have been running around the same time. So this spell is really interesting. It seems very, very, very unstable for what it is. But with that happening, she's unable to maintain her form and she transforms into her giant snake form. Now, Lancelot does say that this will give Tristan a bit of a easier time. Now, I don't think that Tristan was really struggling against the regular Melaskla. I think he probably could have killed that like amalgamation of, you know, goddess and demon energy. I think he probably could have killed that thing relatively easily. I almost think Lancelot did this just to kind of get Melaskla to transform into a giant snake, to where Tristan would probably take this a little bit more seriously, because as we know, Melaskla in her snake form, the poison is very, very powerful. But I definitely feel like Lancelot did this to, I guess, make Tristan fight a little bit better. That's, you know, my own interpretation. I could be way off on that. It could be Tristan was having a hard time, so he had to do this. That's just my interpretation of it. If you see it if you see it in a different way, that's fine. I would love to know about how exactly you interpreted it in the comments, but that's how I took it personally. So she does turn into the huge snake, and they note that this one's combat level or combat class is dangerous. We know that in her huge snake form, she is technically stronger than when she's in her normal form, because their normal form's kind of like suppressed per se, but she uses more magic and stuff in that form, whereas the snake form is a lot more brute strength and poison and that kind of thing. So I mean, honestly, to me, I personally feel like her smaller form is probably more difficult to deal with, but in terms of overall power, the snake form would be stronger. And this is what we have finally all been waiting to see. Tristan does use his demon powers and is able to effortlessly destroy Melaskla. I mean, it's not like a one shot, but he does like absolutely low diff her from flying through her like back and forth. It's like he does not struggle in one bit. And then just from this little picture of his demon form, we can infer a lot of things. His demon mark is very different from how Meliodas' is. It isn't quite the same. If anything, it kind of reminds me more of Zeldris' when it starts to kind of like, after it makes like the full circle on Zeldris', how it starts to like crack a little bit. But Tristan's is kind of like almost like a like upside down cross, or maybe like a star, depending on what you want to look at it, or depending on how you want to look at it. And it has some of like the little darkness cracks on his face. So I think his is very interesting that it's not the quintessential demon mark that most of the demons do have somewhere on them. You also see he is able to enchant his other sword with darkness energy or darkness magic, whatever you want to call it, and he just has an overall more sinister look. And while Melaskla is falling, she does say that evil and huge power, you're nothing like your mother. On the contrary, you're a monster like your father, which Tristan says he didn't want to use the power because he didn't want to hear that. And it makes me wonder, like, is he kind of the same as how Meliodas is, where we see that Meliodas doesn't really like to use his demon powers because he doesn't really want to lose his emotions? I kind of wonder if using demon powers is kind of more, if using demon powers kind of suppresses your emotions or makes you naturally more aggressive toward, maybe that's why Tristan doesn't want to use them all like that. It's kind of very interesting to really think about. So there is that. Nothing else really important happened in the chapter. You know, Percival and Gawain were kind of running around the entire time. You know, Gawain was still mad at Percival for blowing her up, but nothing really too big. Oh wait, at the very end of the chapter, Melaskla, I'm assuming this is Melaskla, you know, asked Arthur for a little bit more power, or for some true power, while waving a chaos wand around. Which I'm wondering what's going to happen with that. Like I'm wondering, is it going to like massively Aunt Melascula, or maybe it's gonna like expend the rest of whatever life she has and make her a bit stronger. And then I wonder to what effect of how much stronger she's going to be. Like, is Tristan still going to be able to beat her relatively easily, or is he going to need more help? Or I'm just really curious to see where this all is going to go from here as far as that is concerned. It's kind of weird because next chapter I don't think we're going to get to see it, because as far as the fan translations is concerned, the next chapter is those acting behind the scenes. So I feel like we're going to shift over to the Star Visor guy and maybe see him in Leona's castle, seeing what he's exactly trying to do or what they're trying to do and accomplish. So I am really excited for next chapter. I guess one of the main takeaways though from this one is that this really does put into perspective how much stronger Lancelot and Tristan are in comparison to Gawain and Percival, and then just how strong Lancelot and Tristan are just in general. Because if it's to the point to where Tristan can easily defeat like a enhanced version of a Ten Commandment, I don't think it's all that crazy to say that Tristan could be as powerful as like a archangel, or potentially even stronger, because as we know, archangels were much stronger than the Ten Commandments if you're comparing them like 1-to-1. So he could be as strong as like a archangel, or even stronger than that, which would just be wild to think about, that this is where he is like at the start of the series for him. Like, this is just how strong he is, which is like crazy. So it definitely opens up the door for them to be way stronger than the Seven Deadly Sins come the end of the series. You could honestly make the argument right now that, that Tristan is already stronger than end of series Diane. Like, you could make that argument if you really wanted to, which is kind of funny. But that being said, I enjoyed this chapter a lot because it was like we got to see more of Tristan's abilities. We finally got confirmation on who that other person was. Well, some confirmation on who they were. Like, I doubt it's Merlin at this point, seeing as like I doubt Merlin and the Star Visor person is the same person. So that's kind of put to bed as far as I'm concerned. But pretty hype chapter. I'd give it like a 8. I mean, it was a fight chapter. Maybe it was a fight chapter, so I mean, not a lot happened. Like I said, mostly a Tristan hype. So I'm probably gonna stick with an 8. So make sure you guys like the video, so subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. That being said, you guys all enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all in my next video.